Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the Endless Endeavor podcast with Greg Anderson. This is episode number 2. And we have a pretty interesting episode for you guys tonight. A good friend of mine who's sitting right here, his name's Stilwell. We've been doing jiu-jitsu together for, over a decade now, right?
Yeah, 11 years, I think.
He's an electric jiu-jitsu black belt, and he had an interesting question yesterday. He said, hey, I'm buying my first gun, and I've never been a gun owner before, and I have some questions for you. And then he said, you know what, that might be a good topic to just discuss on the new podcast. And I was immediately impressed with the idea because in the wake of recent things that we've been watching across our country, there's, I think they said 2 million new gun owners in a matter of a couple months. And this is a topic that I think needs to be heard by people across the country, especially new gun owners, because owning a firearm is not as simple as I went and bought this gun and now I'm ready to use it. It's actually quite the opposite. It's an exhausting task, just like any aspect of mastering a skill at anything you do. It takes a lot of time, a lot of reps, and then it also just takes a lot of knowledge. And if you don't have a means to gain that knowledge, it's going to be exponentially more difficult for you to become proficient with that firearm. So we'll open up. I'll let Scott give a little bit about who he is, what kind of firearm he purchased, and his questions. And then we'll go into a lot of just kind of safety fundamentals and what I think what it is important for new firearm owners to know. So go ahead, Scott.
Yeah. So I'm Scott Stilwell. I've been doing jiu-jitsu with Greg for 11 years now. April 2009 is when I started. I got my black belt last September. I'm an electrician. I teach jiu-jitsu pretty consistently, and I have, obviously things are pretty tumultuous and interesting in the country right now, but on the wake of having my first child, I have a 10-month-old daughter now, safety and what it means to defend oneself has taken on a new dimension, because I don't want to say that I never took guns seriously, but I didn't make the time for them in the way that I made the time for jiu-jitsu and I made the effort for jiu-jitsu. And I don't know if I ever put jiu-jitsu into the frame of obviously I think about jiu-jitsu as a way to defend myself should I need to do so, but it doesn't, the idea of walking around just in the world with what I know in my mind and maybe the way that my ears look or something like that, you put yourself out differently, I think, than if I had a gun on my waistband, which, 32 years, I have never carried a gun in my waistband. So that's a new thing to think about as far as what it means to defend myself, and I guess what it means to be to take up a new responsibility. Because obviously, as a martial artist, this is something I take very seriously, and I want to share it with people, and I want to express that with people. But I'm also, I'm a guitar player as well. I've played since I was like 9 years old. So I'm interested in things that are very technical, and potentially you can go down rabbit holes in any direction. You can pursue that however you want to. Firearms, definitely, I get the impression that you can do that, but I also want it to be at least getting into it purpose-driven, and I want to build, basically looking at it like if I'm a day one white belt all over again. What do I need to know when I walk in? What should I expect to learn? And how can I build a valuable foundation so that I know that I can go basically walk into a gun store or walk into a range or talk about guns and have an idea of what I'm talking about?
Well, and that's a mature approach to firearm ownership, because so many people think that you can go purchase a gun and now I'm ready for a combat engagement with that gun. Yeah. They don't know what it means to carry that thing around, to have that thing on your hip. And I tell people all the time, when you carry a weapon on your hip and now you find yourself in a potential conflict, you just introduced a weapon into a conflict. You introduced a weapon into a combat scenario. And if you're not ready, or you're not proficient, or you don't have the will to kill somebody, you probably shouldn't be interjecting that weapon into that scenario, because it can be just as dangerous or more dangerous as if you didn't have that weapon to start with. And I I think having the proper mindset is the first step that you need when you decide, you know what, I'm going to have this firearm with me now, and I need to know how to use it. I need to know how to implement it. When is appropriate to display it, when is appropriate to use it. And I think we'll get into all of those things, but it's a responsibility that I don't think a lot of people think about ahead of time.
Yeah.
Because as fighters and jiu-jitsu guys, like, I'm not worried about 99% of street fights.
Mm-hmm.
But just like you said, there's a different dynamic now. We have families, we have children, and what if the assailant has a weapon? Or what if you're put in a situation where your child's with you? You probably don't want to be rolling around on the ground looking for a choke if there's two other guys standing there and your wife and your daughter are there.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of different things to think about. And the first thing that I'll say about any type of conflict resolution with or without a weapon, if you can just leave.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's number one, because once you have that weapon, especially once you're carrying a weapon, you have a weapon on your hip, and it's most likely going to be concealed. And I'm an advocate of concealing your weapons if you were going to carry them. I know open carry is a right, and a lot of people like to display their weapons. But in my opinion, you lose the tactical advantage if you show your hand. I would rather allow a situation to develop and that person, that potential assailant, not have any idea what I bring to the table. But once you've made a decision to get in some type of confrontation with somebody, how you proceed forward now that you have a weapon is going to be 180 degrees different than how you proceeded before. Because do you want to be rolling around with a guy when you have a weapon on your hip? No. That's a bad spot to be in. Could it happen? Of course it could. Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, we could sit here all day and talk about potential scenarios. Yes. And that's why you do get a good holster, preferably with some type of retention. And you learn to, you secure it in a place you're comfortable with, a place that you can not only get to quickly, but you can defend quickly as well, as if someone were to reach for it and you can hold it in place. So there's a lot of different considerations to think about. But just know, now you're not getting in a fight with somebody, you're getting in a gunfight with somebody.
Yeah. And I think that one of the things about jiu-jitsu and martial arts is there's a modular level of application. I mean, you can get into a physical altercation, and it can be a very broad spectrum of what that actually means. You know, if there's some drunk asshole that gets rough with you and wants to impress his buddies or whatever, you can handle that a lot differently than if some wild man is out in the parking lot, you know, and things are looking a lot more sketchy and a lot more potentially dangerous. You can apply your technique, and you can apply violence a lot differently in a martial arts scenario, not just with, you know, grappling, but with punching and kicking. But like you said, I mean, if you can avoid a fight, avoid a fight. I think that one of the tenets of self-defense that gets overlooked quite often is just mind your manners.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just be nice, you know?
And I think almost every fighter and martial artist will agree, the more proficient you become at fighting, the less likely you find yourself in fights out on the street.
Yeah.
You know?
You hope so.
99% of the fights that I've been in a real world application when I was young and stupid, and a lot of times alcohol was involved.
Yeah.
And once you start training and you realize like the importance of it and the responsibility behind it, and that's going to be imparted on you if you're part of a good team and you have a good coach, you start to realize like, yeah, this isn't something that I take advantage of. This is something that I have in the case of an emergency.
Correct.
The other thing about martial arts that I've learned through training with like shock knives. Have you ever trained with a shock knife?
No, I have not.
So it's exactly what it is. It's a knife that doesn't cut you. It has a dull blade, but it shocks you. So it doesn't hurt you or incapacitate you, but you immediately know, okay, if this was a real fight, I'm getting cut right now. And it certainly doesn't feel good. And I'll tell you what, man, when you're doing MMA or you're doing jiu-jitsu with a shock knife, you're getting shocked the whole time. And it's frustrating. It was an eye opener for me, because it's like, okay, I've put in 15 plus years to fighting, and now I feel like I can hold my own. And then you introduce a small knife
Yeah.
and everything changes.
I did something like this with Crayola markers one time years ago when I was a purple belt in one of the gyms in Seattle I was training at. And someone who was actually good with knives, good with PTK, whatever that form of fighting is. And it was eye-opening. He tuned me up, obviously. But it was just like, oh, shit, I have nothing with, you have a 4-inch piece of metal in your hand, and everything that I have is gone now. That was very interesting.
And so with one tool, they've neutralized your skill set.
Yeah.
A skill set that you've put 15 years into developing.
Yeah.
And now with one more tool, you can neutralize his skill set. And so it's interesting how something as simple as whatever tool you decide to use can have profound impacts on how the scenario plays out.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm sure we're going to get into all your questions and all your details. Tell me what kind of firearm you purchased and kind of why you decided to go down what route you did.
Yeah. So I bought a Springfield XDM 9mm. It's a 4-inch barrel. It's something I shot at the range up in Arlington a couple times, and fits my hand really well. I was pretty accurate with it. I tried that one. I tried Smith & Wesson. I can't remember exactly the model. I tried a couple Glocks. I tried a Walther, and the Smith & Wesson was pretty close, but I was pretty I was a lot more comfortable with the Springfield, and every time I went up there, I tried that one out again. I was just like, I like this gun.
See, and that makes me happy to hear, because that's exactly the steps you should take when you buy a gun. And I'll tell people this, I'm a Glock guy, and I've been carrying some type of variety of Glock since 2004, consistently, both for personal protection, off duty, and for every agency I've worked for. But just like anything in this world, there's a lot of quality companies. And at the end of the day, it comes down to exactly what Scott mentioned, how it feels in your hand and how it feels when you shoot that weapon. And I would implore people to spend good money, because think about this. You're buying a firearm for the worst moment in your life. And if you're preparing for the worst, you should probably at least spend enough money to know you have something that's reliable, something that's quality, and something that you know at the moment that you need it is going to be dependable. And all of those companies that he just mentioned, Sig Sauer, Smith & Wesson, Springfield, Glock, Walther, like all of those companies are going to provide you with a quality, reliable firearm. But if you start looking at guns that are shit and that are old and that are rusty or damaged, if you get them new, like you're going to get what you pay for in the world of firearms, just like you get in most any industry. And if this is a step that you're willing to take, you've determined, I need to go and I need to become proficient at firearms, and this is necessary for my family, save up the $400 or $500 and get top of the line stuff. That's the first step to making sure that it functions properly, that the safeties work, if it's a model that has a safety, and that it's not going to misfire when you need it. So that's good to hear, man.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, there's a lot of different dimensions that went into making that purchase. Like you said, the financial part of it that's a real thing.
Of course. Yeah.
And just like you said, I was like, all right, well, this is a good time. And a lot of that too, obviously things are pretty hectic right now, but this is something I've been kicking around for a while. And, obviously for self-defense purposes, but also just to get into the game and become, have a relevant point of view. Mm-hmm. And, but yeah, it was, shooting made, I guess it took something off my back, just knowing that, just being behind a pistol and holding it in my hand and watching it go off. It was pretty wild, man, because I've shot rifles before when I was a kid and stuff like that, and I've been hunting a couple times and that whole thing. But loading up a pistol, putting a target down, and then just standing behind it and like feeling it go off is like, oh shit, this right here. It was like a line got drawn in my mind with what I understood about what a gun actually is. Like, this is pretty powerful.
Yes, it is. And I'll expound off of that. Like, most good shooters out there, like all the top shooters in the world, they do what's called dry firing more than live firing. And the reason behind that is just what you said. When that explosion goes off in front of your face, I don't care if you're SEAL Team 6 career military guy, the autonomic nervous system has a response to that that you cannot control. And that gun goes off and it causes a little bit of that startled response, right? Yeah. That is one of the most important aspects of training, is trying to train that startled response out of you, because that startled response impacts accuracy dramatically. So yeah, and it's interesting hearing you say all the right things. Like, as soon as you shot it, you felt that.
Yeah.
And that right there shows you the importance of training, because you want to try and eliminate that as best you can, but you can never completely eliminate it.
Yeah.
It's just like on the mats. And I've been joking that this podcast is going to talk about jiu-jitsu so much that people are going to be like,
I mean, how can you not, you know?
People are going to be throwing things at their stereo. But in jiu-jitsu, you train to a point where the anxious response of losing a fight no longer scares you. Yes, you can still lose a fight, but instead of your heart rate spiking and you start hyperventilating and you get scared, you can calmly analyze the situation and say, okay, I'm in a bad spot. I fucked up somewhere. What do I need to do to get out of here? How do I improve my position? All of those same things are completely applicable at firearms training. It's the exact same thing. But in another jiu-jitsu analogy, I always tell people, like, just because you went and bought your Springfield doesn't mean you're ready for a combat engagement with that piece of equipment.
No.
And that is the biggest misconception that I'm going to beat a dead horse on that one to anybody listening. Just because you purchased a firearm, you are not ready to go out there and shoot somebody. And I think a lot of people think it's as simple as that. I bought it, I put it in my truck, now let's go. And they're not thinking about the responsibility of having that thing. They're not thinking about what could potentially go wrong by having that thing. And I think in the long run, you're doing yourself a disservice. So,
yeah. And I mean, a couple reflections on that, just thinking about, just going over in my mind, like, what is the purpose of a firearm? And obviously, like you say, it's going to come into play at the worst moment of your life, potentially. And you, correct me if I'm wrong, but it feels like gun comes out, someone is about to die, or it wouldn't come out in a scenario otherwise. Someone potentially could die right now.
And this is, I mean, all of these things are going to be subject to debate and interpretation.
Yeah.
And some people have different opinions on these things. But in my mind, if I'm breaking leather, meaning my weapon is being pulled out of its holster, it's a deadly force scenario. I don't, and it goes back to say, like I was saying, I'm not going to show my hand until it's time for action. Yeah. And I feel like I'm pretty good at conflict resolution and de-escalating people with hot tempers. Like, I've been in scenarios before where I've talked to dudes off of the ledge, and you don't want to be doing that, pointing a gun at somebody. Like, the gun should stay holstered up, and you shouldn't tell them you have a gun. You shouldn't display a gun. That thing needs to be held out for last case scenario. And then when it's go time, it's go time. Yeah. And obviously, you're only potentially taking someone's life because they are threatening you, your family, your loved ones, and they're putting you in a situation where you feel like you are either going to be killed or face serious bodily injury. So once those elements have been met and you've decided to pull your weapon out, it's a deadly force scenario. That's it. You're not looking to kneecap somebody. You're not looking to wave your gun around and scream and allow that weapon to help you establish a command presence, because that weapon's not going to help you establish a command presence.
No, it's just going to disorient people.
Exactly. It's going to cause a lot of panic and people probably running, and I'll get into it. I've had a scenario where I was inside of my house and I came around a corner because a guy was breaking in, and I had my M4, and he said, "Shoot me, pussy. Fucking do it. I dare you. Let's see you shoot me." And I had just got back from a deployment to Ramadi.
Jesus.
And dumping that dude wouldn't have even, Yeah, I could have went and made a sandwich afterwards and went back to bed. But the point is, you don't know what you're going to get.
Yeah.
And, for people listening, I'll go into a little bit of detail on that. It was immediately apparent that the guy was belligerently drunk, and he had jeans on and he had a tight white t-shirt. He didn't appear to be armed at all. And yeah, I could have legally shot him. And like I said, it probably wouldn't have bothered me. You're in my house and you're telling me to shoot you. But I also was able to look at the whole scenario and be like, okay, this guy doesn't seem like he's trying to rob me.
Yeah.
He seems like he's fucking hammered and doesn't really know what's going on.
Yeah.
And so I handed my weapon to my roommate at the time. I said, I want you to go call the police and go into your bedroom with this gun. Do not come out. It was a female, so I didn't want to interject her into any type of physical altercation. And I'd only been training jiu-jitsu for 2 or 3 years at that time. But 3 years of jiu-jitsu versus a drunk asshole, he was unconscious in about 10 seconds.
Yeah.
And then I was able to restrain him and wait for the police to arrive. And it's funny because what ended up happening is that guy had rented a room out of my house.
Huh. Before you owned it?
Before I owned it, 5 years earlier. And that was still on his ID.
Oh.
And he got super drunk at a bar and gave his license to the cab driver and said, take me home.
Oh, shit.
So he was too drunk and he shows up and, oh, fuck it. This looks like my house.
This is right over here.
Yeah, right here.
Oh, Jesus, man.
And was just coming on in to go to bed.
Get your address changed, bro.
And he almost died over it.
Yeah.
That's the crazy thing. But that goes into what we're talking about. Just remember, when a weapon, when a scenario presents itself that you think you may have to use deadly force, you need to be very aware of all the little details and nuances that are taking place in real time. And that can be difficult to do. And it's funny. I said, don't display a weapon unless you intend on using it.
Uh-huh.
But I think that's for outside of your house. Inside of my house, very different. When I hear things happening inside my house, I grab my AR, I throw my body armor on, and I clear the house. And I don't have intentions of killing anyone unless something presents itself that needs deadly force applied to it.
I mean, few things are sacred. Your house is sacred.
Exactly.
I mean, that's what this is all about. So, and yeah, I mean, you could have applied yourself differently, even with what we were talking about, the application of jiu-jitsu, because you could have broken that guy's neck.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not necessarily off the table. So.
No, an interesting thing that my coach said at the time, and it was Charlie Pearson from Charlie's Combat Club. Yeah. I went to practice that night or the next day or whatever it was. And I told him the story and he goes, I'm proud of you, Greg. He goes, you resolved the situation and didn't have to hurt the guy. That's exactly what we do.
Yeah.
And that was pretty awesome to hear from Coach,
Oh, yeah.
Because, I mean, Charlie Pearson was a pro fighter. He fought all over the world and he can maul any human being on planet Earth.
Yeah.
And even guys at that level want you to resolve situations with the least amount of violence as possible. You know?
Yeah. And that's huge for us. That's representative of how we train and what we train for.
Absolutely.
Because this, on the mat is lifestyle. Like I want to do this until I can't.
Yep. Me too.
And I don't want to be a negative representation of everything that I've worked for and my friends and my family. And going into firearms, it's the same thing.
Absolutely. So let me ask you this. I know you wrote down some questions as a new firearm owner that you had for someone that had a lot of experience with firearms. Mm-hmm. So let's just go down that path. What do you got?
So the first, I think, was, well, what is self-defense? If we're going to start and build a foundation for what we're doing this for, do you have a working definition? Is that, or obviously it's kind of self-evident, but is there a set in stone, rule or rule of thumb that law enforcement or anybody, is this pretty laissez-faire, pretty open-minded?
It's wide open.
Okay.
And it's wide open for interpretation. And that goes for both civilian and law enforcement. At the end of the day, if you decide to use deadly force against someone, you need to be able to articulate why you were in fear for your life or the life of somebody else. That not only life of like a friend or a loved one, but like if you're in a restaurant and someone's comes in and is an active shooter,
Yeah.
They could be shooting someone that you've never met before. You have the right to defend that person with deadly force. And so in different states have different, like, I think there's some states where you can defend property with deadly force, but you got to ask yourself, like, not only is that something that you want to do or that you're willing to do, but are you willing to face the legal ramifications for that? And
That's a big question that I have too, is where all of this lies, because obviously there's legal repercussions, and I would imagine there's a network of representation for people in these scenarios. I've never heard, I don't know if that's, I imagine that's true. People, lawyer up and represent people in these scenarios. But that's something that surprisingly I've never heard addressed and obviously people talk about guns and violence, and it's very drama oriented. Drama is a very soft word to describe that, but when you hear about guns being used, you hear about the person A got shot by person B, and that's about it. You don't hear about the legal representation of person B. This is obviously a tangent. This is a whole other sector of this conversation, but I think it's important as well.
Yeah. And you have to remember, like, you don't only want to protect yourself legally in a criminal aspect, but civilly as well. Like if you shoot someone and you are found that you are innocent of any criminal wrongdoing, they can still come back and sue you for everything you're worth civilly. And so, and again, I'm not going to not use deadly force in a scenario because I'm worried about being prosecuted or I'm worried about being sued civilly. Like, I've already come to terms with what meets that threshold. And for me, that threshold is I'm at risk, my family's at risk, or somebody that I'm observing is at risk of death or serious bodily injury. Shy of that, like if I saw someone trying to break into my truck, out in my driveway,
I'm the cops.
Well, no, it depends on what you're comfortable with. I'm absolutely going to confront that person.
Yeah.
Right. And it's called the force continuum. Like, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to say, get out of my fucking truck, or I'm going to yard him out of my truck with my hands. I'm going to incapacitate him or detain him, but I'm not going to go out there and shoot the guy for trying to steal my truck. And I've already come to terms with that. Right. Someone comes into my house. Now it's a different story. And I have kids now. I didn't have kids when that guy broke into my house.
Yeah.
It'd be a very different story now. I will not allow my kids to be subjected to any kind of danger. And if that means your drunken idiot ass walks into my house at 2 a.m, you're probably going to get killed now. And that's what it is. My kids come first. But what I'm doing right now in the military, we call it wargaming. You think of different scenarios. Like, you think of different potential scenarios that could take place both at your house or outside your house or in a restaurant or at a bar. And you think about, what would I do if this guy jumped up and punched me? What would I do if a guy walked through that door with a gun? And what that does is, in your brain, if a scenario does present itself, it's likely not the first time that you've ever processed that emotionally and like the actual, like, physical steps that you are going to take. Like, where am I going to go to get cover? And once I engage this guy, what's step 2? Like, go through these different scenarios with in your mind, and then you're not going to be caught off guard. You're not going to be quite as surprised when they really take place.
Do you have that plugged into your mind? Like, if you walk into a restaurant or just out and about, is that kind of always there? Or
to a certain extent, but I also remind people, especially veterans, don't allow wargaming to consume who you are, because there's a balance to it. Yes, you should have your head on a swivel and you should be aware of your surroundings and you should be ready for worst case scenarios. But that doesn't mean I only sit in the corner of a restaurant.
Yeah.
I know guys that say they don't use urinals because they're given their backup. I only use the stall. I can shut the door behind me. And it's like, okay, I mean, you do you, right? But at the end of the day, if you live in that high level of stress where every single aspect of your life is a potential combat engagement, you're probably going to your heart's probably going to blow up at 53 years old.
Well, and I'm a believer that, you tend to attract the things that you put out in the world. So if you're walking around potentially prepared, well, that might come to you.
Very true. Yeah.
You know, which, you know, people can take that for what it's worth, but I totally don't want to be that guy. But, so that's our working definition for self-defense then, for if we pinned anything down there. But I guess the next question I have, where do you apply guns? Where do you install guns? Is that end of the line after you've checked a bunch of other boxes as far as your situational awareness, your physical well-being? Is that something that I'm going to handle this one first and everything else is going to fall into line after that?
So are you saying at what point of the altercation do you feel like
well,
is a gun last case scenario?
I guess that, but I guess, just big picture. If you are of the mind that I'm going to start preparing to defend myself and I want that to be a component of my life, maybe not, you know, moment to moment or situation to situation, I mean, obviously you were in the military and law enforcement, so guns mean something, you know, completely different to you than they do for me. But what order of magnitude do guns have in a self-defense scenario?
Well, it's an interesting question because as things escalate, a situation could play out over a course of 20 minutes, right?
Yeah.
A guy could, I mean, who knows? You get in a fender bender and the guy starts swearing at you and it starts to escalate and he tells you, I'm going to fuck you up. And like, okay, like go sit down. Let's wait for the police. And then he walks back to his car and you see him get something out and you're like, okay, now what's that fucking dude doing? Right? Like we could paint a picture where it's literally 20 minutes before you say, I think that guy has the intent of trying to hurt me or kill me. And now it's time to present my weapon and take deadly force. We could also paint a picture where all of those steps happen in a fraction of a second.
Yeah.
You pull up to a stop sign and some dude comes up and grabs you by your scruff of your shirt while you're driving your car and has a knife in his hand and says, get out of your truck, motherfucker. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And now everything that just went to deadly force in a fucking fraction of a second.
Yeah. Your first encounter with this person is that degree of severity.
And now it's time to kill this guy right now. And if I hesitate, I might get killed. Yeah. And so it's hard to say, like, to talk about like the force continuum or escalation of force, because we could paint scenarios for 100 different, we could paint 100 different scenarios and each one of those could have a different escalation. But I would say at the end of the day, for a new firearm owner, don't plan on pulling that out until you've mentally committed to shooting that person.
Yeah.
And not just, and again, like it's not just shooting him to kill him or maim him or wound him. The intent is to stop the threat.
That I was going to ask you that at some point as well. Do you shoot to kill somebody or do you shoot to stop somebody?
You shoot to neutralize the threat.
Okay.
Okay. But don't mistake that for let's shoot him in the knees.
Yeah.
If someone has decided, if someone's actions has made you decide that a deadly force scenario is where you're going to take this, it's center mass, which means basically the center of their sternum, and you mow that motherfucker down. That's what you do because you've determined this guy has to be stopped or I could get injured or killed. And the fastest way to do that is center mass and dump rounds into him until the threat is neutralized, until he's on the ground and it's absolutely apparent that he presents danger no longer.
Yeah.
Now, when I say center mass is the fastest way, some people will be like, well, wouldn't shooting him right between the eyes be the fastest way? Yes. If you're proficient enough to do that, by all means, take a headshot, right?
Yeah.
But I want people to understand shooting pistol is very difficult. It's difficult to become proficient at, and it's a difficult skill set to maintain if you don't spend a lot of time on the range and a lot of time doing dry fires and a lot of time drawing from the holster. And so the reason why center mass is taught to almost all beginner shooters is because what it does, it's the largest target with the largest margin of error. So if I'm trying to shoot you center mass of your sternum and I miss by 6 inches or 7 inches in any direction, goes down to my belly button, down up to like my chin, right? That's bullets on target. That's good shooting, regardless of where you're hitting them. You're getting rounds on target, and center mass has been statistically proven to be the best aim point to quickly get rounds on target.
Gotcha.
It goes back to the also like the aim small, miss small notion. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
I feel like I might have, yeah.
Mel Gibson from The Patriot, shout out.
Okay.
No, but the whole thought of that is, if I'm going to try and shoot center mass on someone, right? Like the shirt that I'm wearing, instead of thinking about, I'm going to shoot him in his chest, think about, I'm going to shoot him in the H of his shirt, right?
Okay.
Because now my chest is this big, right?
Yeah.
The size of a dinner plate. Whereas if you think about shooting a button on his shirt,
I got you.
Now you're honing in on a more specific target, and it's more likely that is what you are going to hit.
Gotcha.
And that's not something like, dude, in a combat scenario where you're shooting human beings, a lot of the shit goes out the window because it's, oh, fuck,
Yeah.
And I've been in enough shootings in Iraq to realize, like, dude, highly trained dudes, you get that big adrenaline dump, and a lot of your tactics and a lot of your capabilities are not what you thought they were. And so a lot of those fundamentals are something that, like the aim small, miss small notion, is something that you really drill in on the range.
Okay.
And you have to get proficient, and you have to get accurate, and you do all that on the range. But when it's go time, you know what, like, what's the saying go? You don't rise to the occasion, you fall back to the highest level of training that you have.
Yeah. You're definitely, I mean, I can say that from jiu-jitsu competition as well. Like, I don't get any better. I get as good as I have prepared for.
Yeah, exactly. And I think a lot of people think when it's go time, I'm going to be Jason Bourne and just dumping dudes left and right. And in reality, you're probably going to miss every shot if you haven't put the time in.
Yeah.
And one more thing on that too is like, in your training, there's accuracy and then there's rounds on target. And rounds on target happen from shooting quickly, whereas accuracy happens from shooting slowly. So in a combat scenario, yes, you want to be accurate, but you also want to be quick. So when you train, you have to think about that. What do I want to focus on? Do I want to be able to keep every single round in the same hole, and it looks like a mouse chewed a hole in the very center of my target, and it's a beautiful target, right? And it's like, wow, that guy can fucking shoot pistol. But if he's shooting one round every 10 seconds, and that's what his target looks like, what that tells you is he's not pushing himself. So I really enjoy accuracy shooting to understand my weapon and really dial in my optics or my sights. And I enjoy that. I think it's a necessary component of learning your firearm. But once you're dialed in on the accuracy side of things, now you move into what's called combat shooting. And when you're doing combat shooting drills, your target's going to look like shit because you're going to miss. That's the reality of it. You want to push yourself, and they'll run a timer and they'll be like, okay, I want 4 rounds center mass, 2 seconds. And on the buzzer you go. And beep, bang, 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 bang. And then you look and you're like, fuck, dude, that was kind of shit.
Yeah.
So maybe you give yourself another second, and then give yourself another second. And then, okay, now I'm able to hold that group real tight. Let's try and dial it back down again. Let's try and get those rounds on target in 2 seconds again and see where I'm at. And you can see, so speed versus accuracy, it's a dichotomy. You can't have both.
Yeah.
So what you want to be able to shoot as quickly as you can get rounds on target.
Gotcha. That was going to be, well, there's 2 things in there that I wanted to ask you about. One of them is kind of conceptual, and it's related to time and the application of time in an encounter. I don't know where I heard this, but it totally made sense. Is the more that you can apply time in your favor, so take seconds away from the other guy or add seconds to yourself by, discourse or movement or whatever. So I guess obviously that plays into shooting. If you're talking about shooting and obviously putting rounds on people, do you have a go-to, like, I'm going to put 3 rounds or 5 rounds or an entire magazine? Do you have that purpose oriented?
You know, before the wars kicked off, it was a lot of times it was taught like 2 to the chest, 1 to the head.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's bang, bang. And if he's still standing there, okay, maybe he has body armor on. Now we're going to go to the head.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the drill for years. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, reassess. 2 to the chest, 1 to the head, reassess. And what they found overseas was, especially running 5.56 and 9 millimeter is a great round, but the reality of human bodies is they're fucking tough.
Yeah.
And if you want to neutralize the threat, it's burn that motherfucker to the ground. And sometimes that's half a magazine.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that sounds strange to people that have never been in a combat scenario or have never taken a human life, but it goes back to what we talked about in the beginning. The choice has been made to end this person's life in the preservation of mine or others.
Mm-hmm.
And so to neutralize the threat efficiently and effectively, it's you burn them down. And that might take 10, 12 rounds.
Mm-hmm.
And just get that in your mind that's what a combat engagement looks like.
Gotcha. So you, in that situation, shooting consistently until they are on the ground?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. And then the other side of it is, and this is more advanced tactics, but like when you engage a target, you want what's called a sight picture. You want to have the weapon presented in front of you. You want to have your grip. You want to have your arms aligned the correct way. You want to have good posture. You want to have good foot placement. Like you want all these things, right? In a perfect scenario. But guess what? Very few scenarios are perfect.
Yeah.
And you may be drawing and pulling and breaking leather right at your hip where your holster is. I might need to start shooting right here as soon as the weapon is at hip level. And I shoot as I establish my sight picture and get into my position.
So you're not, okay. So you don't think like I'm going to get into shooting position and then begin to shoot. You're like, I'm shooting into my shooting
position. Yeah. And again, it just depends. It goes back to what you said about time.
Mm.
Like if there's a guy that is presenting an immediate deadly threat, you got to get rounds on target right now.
Yeah.
Right now. Whereas if it was a guy who was 25 feet away running around with a knife, okay, well, I made the decision that this is a deadly force situation and I'm going to draw my gun and I'm going to get my sight picture and I'm going to engage. Time may not be quite of the essence as a different scenario where a guy's 2 feet away from you and he's grabbing you or something like that. Right.
Mm.
And so again, it goes back to that speed versus accuracy. That also plays into how much time you have. Like, dude, a sniper that is, 900 meters away from his target, he has all the time in the world.
Yeah.
He can sit there. He can put he can get like a really good shooting platform built. He can get good offset in a room. He can, check his windage and hit it with a laser rangefinder, make sure everything is dialed in because he has all the time in the world.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes.
So he can make it perfect.
He can make it perfect. And then other times it's up close and it's nasty and a guy grabs a hold of you and you literally have to pull your Glock out of your waistband and start shooting him in the guts, like
Jesus.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
But it's good we're talking about this because I want everyone to know, like, unless you're mentally prepared to shoot someone and watch their guts and their blood spill out and the fucking smell of the bile coming out of their stomach and like them twitching on the ground, like shooting people's fucking weird. Like it's weird sometimes.
Fucking sounds like it.
Yeah. I mean,
Jesus.
we used to call it the dead man dance in Iraq because you'll shoot dudes and they're just moving all around for a long time. Like I've had guys like, he's still fucking alive. Shoot him again. And it's like, no, that's just like the human body.
This is what happens.
Shutting down.
Yeah.
And that's just, sometimes it's instantaneous and then sometimes they flop around forever. It's weird, So you have to have the mindset that it's going to be nasty and I'm going to win I'm going to have a winner mindset, and I'm not afraid of what this is going to look like after the fact, because this is what fucking winning looks like.
Yeah. And I think that, obviously martial arts, you can think about it the same way. You're not going to get a perfect rear naked choke on somebody. I mean, even a best case scenario, you scrape up your elbows, you get a black guy, you know, maybe there's a scuffle and someone gets a tooth knocked out.
Of course.
But a vicious martial arts scenario is like people are going to get their eyes gouged out, fucking fingers bitten off. Like fighting is super fucking dangerous. Like avoid it at all costs.
And it's ugly.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because human nature is ugly.
Yeah.
You know? Yeah, a big side of like gunfighting that I think that gets lost in the weeds is your health and your fitness. And I talk to people about this all the time. If you want to be a gunfighter, you have to focus on your health and your fitness, because any combat scenario is exhausting. Not only do you have like a big adrenaline dump just from the hormones that are going through your veins, but then depending on what happens, like you're going to be looking for cover. And when we talk about cover is something that you can get behind that can stop rounds. So it's a big tree, a rock, you know, a goalie where like you can actually hide behind earth. Those things are cover. Or concealment is things that you can hide behind that don't stop rounds. So you might get behind like a big bush or tall grass.
Gotcha.
And it's like that will conceal them. So it's going to make them hard to engage you. But if they do see where you're at, it's not going to save you. And a big misconception is that cars are cover. Cars are not cover. Cars are concealment.
Gotcha.
I've seen rounds, even 9mm, cut through car doors like butter. So yeah, don't be in that mindset that you can just hide behind a car and that you're good. If you are behind a car, think about the engine block, or think about like behind the wheel wells, like right behind the tires where you got like the brake calipers and all that. Like you want the bullet to have to go through as much mass and as much metal as possible before it gets to you.
Gotcha.
But to circle back on the fitness thing, a lot of new shooters, I put a gun in their hand, and obviously it's not loaded. I just want to say, grab this weapon and and point it at something. I want to see how you hold it. And they stand up super tall and their knees are locked out and they're like leaning back on their heels. And it's just this real awkward stance. They like squint one eye and hold their head all sideways. And then I'll push them. And you'll see they're not on their base. They're not anticipating being shoved, and they'll stumble or fall over. And it's like, okay, you're not ready for a fight.
Yeah.
You're standing like, I don't know what you're standing like no other time in your life.
Like someone doesn't know what the fuck they're doing.
Someone that doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. And a lot of times it's fighters. Like I used to take fighters from Charlie's Combat Club when I was training there back in the day. And, dude, these dudes are savages, high level wrestlers and grapplers and strikers. And you put a gun in their hand and they don't know how to stand. But it's always interesting with fighters, because I'd say, hey, I want you to stand with your firearm like you're ready to shoot a double on someone. Like, I want good base. I want your feet in a position where you're ready to move. You need to be able to cut an angle, and you need to be able to sprint, or you need to be able to jump or duck. It's a fight.
That makes sense.
It's a fight. You're not on the range. You got to be ready for combat. And combat is movement. Movement is what wins fights. You have to get to a position where you can engage someone quicker than they can get to a position and engage you. Or if they already got the drop, you need to be moving to cover and you need to be evading. And so like, I think that gets lost in a lot of people's minds when they think about a combat engagement. Your fitness is imperative to winning. And I learned this as a young private with the Ranger Regiment. We had an honorary colonel. His name was Colonel Puckett. And Colonel Puckett fought in the trenches of North Korea. And he told crazy stories about bayoneting dudes. Jesus. And he's like, listen, Rangers, if I can impart one thing on you guys, one thing. If you want to be successful in combat, you need a high level of physical fitness. That's it. He goes,
Yeah.
it is hard. You are exhausted almost immediately, and then you got to drive on.
Just
And
like a fight.
It's just like a fight. Exactly. And think about people that don't know how to fight. Think about trying to get in a street fight that lasts 6 minutes.
Oh, man.
Fucking dead.
Yeah.
Nobody can fight for 6 minutes that's
No.
untrained.
If you're not prepared for that output, I mean,
It's impossible to maintain that.
yeah.
Like people watch the UFC and see these guys fight for 25 minutes, and I don't know if they realize what that takes. But 25 minutes of fighting is the hardest fucking thing you will ever do in your entire life.
Yeah.
I did an MMA fight that lasted 15 minutes. And I was completely useless by the end of it. And I remember I told Charlie afterwards, I said, I'm out of shape. Like, that was way too hard. And he goes, Greg, I was just tired at the end of every single one of my fights.
Mm-hmm.
He goes, that's fighting, man.
Yeah. That's how it is.
That's how it is.
I mean, when I did Fight to Win a couple of years ago, 8-minute round, and even timing myself well and, getting into a good position and winning the match and being, pretty happy about how it went out. I went into the back room and I just fucking flopped on my back, and I was in great shape for that.
And that is partially the physical, but that's also the mental.
Mm-hmm.
Because the mental stress of real competition, where it's like, okay, this isn't my homie at my gym. This is a dude that will fucking break my arm if he gets a chance to.
Yeah. On a big stage in front of 1,000 people.
Yeah.
Like,
that's a different type of energy, and you have to manage that.
Yeah.
And it's awesome hearing you say all this stuff because it's exactly what happens in a combat scenario.
It totally makes sense that you would think about being in a fighting stance to hold a gun to. I never probably would have thought of that on my own, but I mean, we're blending guns into what we already know about fighting.
Well, and here's the other aspect of that. You might have to punch someone.
Yeah.
You might have to elbow someone, right? Like he grabs your gun. Let's say you go around a corner and the dude's right there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe he neutralizes your weapon and now it is a hand-to-hand combat situation.
Yeah.
So those two are very interchangeable. Or you have a malfunction and now you need to pistol whip or butt stroke that motherfucker,
Mm-hmm.
right? Now it's a fight. So don't differentiate fighting with your fist from gunfighting all the time, because you need to be of the mindset that those two things are very interchangeable,
That totally makes sense. And that touches on a deeper philosophical point of what people, should do. Like, obviously you want people to be healthy. Should you dedicate some amount of your time in your life to fitness? Yes, you should, because you're less of a liability on the people around you. You're not going to drive up my fucking healthcare premiums. You're not going to die when you're fucking 50.
You're better for your kids. You're better for your spouse. Like, having a base level of fitness doesn't detract from your life at all. It only adds to it.
Right.
It's something Joe Al used to say. He's like, I've yet to meet the guy that started training and then regretted it. That person doesn't exist, because as you get better at jiu-jitsu or your health or your body composition, nobody looks back on that and is like, damn it, why did I get so healthy? It doesn't happen.
Hope not, man.
Yeah, it doesn't happen. So yeah, man, that's fitness is imperative to combat.
Okay.
And shooting is combat. That's it.
Do you think about it the same way that you think about, doing jiu-jitsu or anything, cardio oriented, lifting, any exercise in particular that carries over into shooting and holding a gun, holding a pistol? I
would say combat fitness is very similar to martial arts, because it's obviously it's a lot of body weight stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I would also say that it's good cardio is great, but in the military has even changed their tune since the war started, because we used to just wake up and run 5 miles every day. That was it, And then when we started deploying, they realized like, okay, well, this dude gets shot and then he grabs his buddy. He has to sprint across a street. Then he has to drag his buddy 90 meters to a Humvee and load him up. And combat started to show that fitness needs to be more geared towards the scenarios that soldiers and Marines are finding on the streets.
Gotcha.
And so, yeah, it was a lot of like short interval sprints, like buddy carries, sprinting across the street with full gear and grabbing some equipment and then running back. And, like we had a guy on my team get shot and I wasn't there. I was actually home on leave when this happened. But a fully kitted up adult man can easily weigh 300 pounds.
Yeah.
And one of my buddies had to carry that dude over his shoulder, like a fireman carry, down a flight of stairs, across a parking lot, and throw him in the back of a Suburban so they could evac.
Jesus, man.
And that's what might happen.
Yeah.
So if you're in a scenario where you're protecting your family and God forbid your wife takes one to the knee or something bad happens, you got to be ready to literally pick her up and run her to your car or whatever it is. I just feel like you have to be prepared for the worst. And part of that is health and fitness.
Yeah.
And so don't lose track because I have a gun now that now I don't have to apply myself at the gym as much. Nothing could be further from the truth. I think that that's like almost a misconception that people fall back on because you see a lot of guys that are big firearm guys that love shooting that are like morbidly obese.
Yeah. The thought of becoming that guy is fucking abhorrent to me.
Yeah, exactly.
Like,
and I always laugh when I see those guys because it goes back to what I was saying about like combat shooting versus accuracy. And there's a lot of those guys. Some of them can shoot aspirin out of the air. You know what I mean? Like their accuracy is dead nuts on.
Yeah.
It's impressive. But that person is not ready for combat. That person is a sport shooter that has fun with it. And it's just, don't sell yourself a lie. They're two very different things.
It's like you see those kids. I mean, unfortunate that I got a slime on jiu-jitsu right now, but I saw a video of some kid that sat down and tried to pull De La Riva on a street fight and got kicked in the face.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
Like, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
No, don't do that.
No, that's actually a perfect analogy.
Yeah.
Because De La Riva is fun. I enjoy training De La Riva. I think it's effective in finding an arm. There's an armbar setup off there that I find.
Yeah.
But it's applicable as a hobby.
Yeah, it's great on the mats with gis on, with people that don't have very bad intentions.
Exactly.
It's not awesome on pavement.
Dude, no guard work is awesome on pavement.
Fuck. Man.
You will never see me playing guard in a life or death situation.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, if I got a guy
If you
mounted
get there, and
he bucks me off and now I'm on the bottom, okay, let's deal with this. And that's why we work our guard. But guard is not a go-to self-defense position.
Yeah.
And if people think it is, like, I just feel like they need to incorporate some MMA into their jiu-jitsu to see where that takes their jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, have somebody pick you up and slam you in the gym on the mats and tell me how comfortable you are with that.
Yeah.
With your head potentially, hitting the curb behind you. Yeah. I mean, that's obviously we touched on this, but the applicability of jiu-jitsu in dire circumstances, because let's be honest, man, what's the percentage of jiu-jitsu people that could not punch and kick their way out of a paper bag?
Yeah. A lot.
It's a scary high number.
Yeah, it's a lot.
Hate to tell you guys, but you got to fucking do some kickboxing.
Yeah, exactly.
It just is what it is.
Yeah. If you don't have striking, you might not have fighting.
Right. And if you don't have a double leg takedown, you don't have fucking any jiu-jitsu.
Bro, that's Joao 101.
Yeah.
If you can't get the fight at the ground, you don't have jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Period. Yeah, but to touch on the firearm being looked at as a tool, I want to really beat that into people because, there's a lot of analogies I use. It's like, if you were to come up here and train with me and put my black belt on, that's not going to do shit for you.
Yeah.
Right? Or if Mario Andretti gives you his race car and says, hey, this thing's fucking, everything's ready to go. It just came out of the shop. The mechanics went through everything with a fine tooth comb. This car is fucking amazing. Do you think you're going to win any races in that car?
You're going to put it into the wall as soon as the first corner comes up. There's nothing you can do about it.
Or like a football player, like you go put all, you're like, okay, I just got all the equipment. I got all the pads. I'm ready. I'm ready to go out on the field. What good is that? It's no good unless you put the time in to become proficient at that skill set and utilize those tools in a manner that they're intended to being used. And you spend a year on the track with that race car. Oh, now you're starting to get dialed in on it.
Mm-hmm.
You're not going to win anything yet, but things are starting to make sense, right?
Yeah.
It's the same with firearms, man. You're going to have to spend so much time on the range before you even begin to feel like, okay, things are starting to click now.
Yeah.
You know,
I had the same experience playing guitar. I mean, just like anybody else, you suck for a really long time and you keep hammering at it, and then you get to not suck so much after a while.
I still suck. I still suck at the guitar, and I still suck at jiu-jitsu.
That's neither of those things are true.
But, well, and it's funny. Like, I don't say that to be like disparaging or like self-deprecating, but I always try and like think about the things that I put time into in my hobbies, shooting, guitar, jiu-jitsu. And I don't ever want to feel like, oh, I'm pretty good.
Oh, no.
Because as soon as I feel like my jiu-jitsu is pretty good, then I roll with Buchecha.
Yeah.
And I realize I suck again. And it's the same thing with firearms. I got friends that I'll go to the range with, and I'll be like, I should just give you my guns and become a vegan. You know, like, because
don't hang out with those guys anymore, man.
Some guys are at a whole different level.
Yeah.
And I always want to maintain the humility to be like, you know what? Like, I got a long ways to go.
Yeah.
I'm good, and I got a lot of skill sets and capabilities I bring to the table, but I'm not there yet.
Yeah.
You know?
That's the dichotomy of humility and ego, because you want to bring your ego in a nice packaged format so you have some idea of who you are and how you want to express yourself to people, but you want to be humble about where you're at. You know, it's the whole, jiu-jitsu no ego thing. That's a very ego-driven statement by itself.
I hate it when people say that.
Yeah.
That's one of my pet peeves, man, because any type of competition, be it real world or in our gym with our training partners, or competition like at an IBJJF tournament, I don't show up ready to lose.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? You know what I'm looking to get today, guys? I'm looking to get tapped out 10 times.
Yeah. I'm looking to get put in my place today.
Like
no.
Fuck no. It's the opposite.
Yeah.
It's the opposite to the point where it's like, I'm visualizing smashing people. Like, I did so shitty in competition for a long time that I remember I hung a plaque on my front door of my apartment when I was living in Huntington Beach, and it said IBJJF Gold. Like, every time I left my house, I had to see that.
Mm-hmm.
I think you have to fucking win one of these tournaments. You have to. You put in so much time and then you flop. You put in so much time and then you flop. And I remember after looking at that every day for months, I went and did the Long Beach Open.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first tournament I won and that I was proud of.
Fuck yeah.
And even in that tournament, man, I was like, I did so many things wrong.
Yeah.
But
self-criticism,
Yeah. But it's just having that mindset that you're going to win. And that was hard for me.
Mm-hmm.
I had to literally hang it on my front door and beat that into my brain over and over and over and over.
Yeah. And I guess anything like that, when you have a goal, how much do you push it? And I guess with this, it's going to be the same thing. I'm going to feel it out. Obviously I want to, when it arrives, I'm going to take it out and play with it.
Well, and I'll say this, like, there is no clear answer for that. Cause you could start shooting every single day, or you could shoot once a month, but you just have to be honest with yourself with how much time I'm putting in with this firearm and where my capabilities are at based on the time that I'm giving this. And that's the important thing, that you just have to be true to yourself. And if you're putting in 1 day a month, you're probably not going to be at a level where you would like to be when the time comes. But then with work and your coaching and you got babies, like, I get it, man.
Yeah.
Maybe you can't put in the time that you need to get to the level where you feel comfortable. But that comes back, then be honest with yourself. Know that, hey, I'm not a gunfighter. Like, I'm going to carry this and I'm going to present it in scenarios where I feel like I have a lot of space or I have time on my side, but I'm not going to run into a school and start tracking down an active shooter and taking them out. I'm probably not ready for that. So it kind of depends on the time you can put in and where you want to be personally. And it's the same thing with anything, man. I got people that train jiu-jitsu and they're here once every 2 weeks or something.
Mm-hmm.
And they're busy and they got kids, and this is what they want to give the sport. They're not ever going to get real good doing that, but that's okay too. It depends on what you want to get out of it. And then that honesty with yourself about your capabilities. Yeah. Have you thought about, there's a lot of aspects of owning a gun that is not just shooting the gun that are important. Are you going to have a safe?
Yes.
Okay.
Totally.
Weapons need to be stored properly. And I think if you're willing, if this is a hobby or this is something that you want to pursue, like I said, not only buy quality equipment, but buy a gun safe.
Mm-hmm.
And if you have one pistol, you can buy one little gun safe and they're not expensive.
Yeah.
You can go to Costco. I have a Costco gun safe that literally mounts on my bed, and it has a keypad, and I push 4 buttons and it pops open.
Mm.
So it's quick access, but it's also secure.
Yeah.
And then know about your weapon, take it apart, learn about like how it functions, how to clean it, and actually treat that weapon like you would treat anything that you want to function properly and that you want to last a long time.
Yeah.
Take it apart, oil it, and clean it after you go to the range and get all the carbon out. Like, it's important to give that weapon the care and the maintenance that it deserves to function properly. Because again, when you need that weapon, you don't hope that it works. You need that fucking weapon to work.
Yeah. And
that comes back on being familiar with it and then also taking care of it properly. The other thing that I always am a proponent of, familiarization with weapons, not just familiarization with you, it's in your house now. So people in that house should have some familiarization with that weapon. So take your wife to the range.
Yeah.
Get her up to speed on it. And like, I mean, my wife's been with me forever and she doesn't put much time on the range, but she has an understanding. She has a base level understanding.
Gotcha.
And I think if you're going to have those in your house, the people that live in your house should have that.
Yeah. Yeah. She has a little Glock 38 that we were kind of playing around with. She hasn't shot in a while, but I took it apart, put it back together, took it apart, but put it back together. And I have not shot that one yet, but we were talking when I go to pick up my pistol when it's ready, she wants to get a little Glock 43.
Yeah.
So we'll both be on the same page together. So
for sure.
Just like you say.
And then the other thing that I always recommend to people, and I know your daughter's only 10 months, so maybe she's not ready. My daughter's at 10 months. They were already ready. They were already indoctrinated. But no, and I'm not even being facetious. I let my kids play with my ARs and my Glocks on the kitchen table while I was cleaning them since the time they were babies. And I did that for a very specific reason. My dad did that with me growing up. And the rule in my dad's house was, anytime you want to play with my guns, come and let me know. We'll pull them out of the safe. We'll set them on the table and you can look at them. You can take them apart. Anytime you want to shoot them, talk to me about it. We will go to the range or we'll go out in the woods and find a spot. There was nothing mysterious about firearms in my house.
That's so refreshing to hear, man, especially these days with all the, mysticism around what a gun is and what it means. This is kind of a wild thought, but we were talking before we started doing this that, I'm an electrician by trade, and I really wish, and I think it's going to come back around, that people were putting trades into high schools more. So kids weren't just coming out of high school and like, well, now what?
Yeah.
So they'd go build something. This is kind of a wild thought, but do you think that firearm training has a place in a public school, or do you think that should it be elevated more in society, just in general, in the household, or what are your thoughts on that?
I think, and I know that I'm a wacko, right? Like, what do I know? But it goes back to familiarization and understanding. And I think if firearms were more of a normal part of our culture again, because they used to be. Mm-hmm. In the 50s, they had firearms at school. They had ranges at school.
Yeah.
How many kids shot each other up? It wasn't happening. And I mean, we could go down a rabbit hole on the fucking decline of the family unit and mental health problems and all these things that lead to violence in our culture that I probably don't even begin to understand.
Yeah.
But I do feel like firearms in the hands of the correct people is beneficial to society.
Yeah.
And I think if they could have some type of, maybe not like an elective at class, but an after school shooting club where you're taught the basic firearms fundamental safety rules and you're taught how, the level of responsibility that's necessary to partake in that hobby. Like, I think it'd be good for young men and women. Like, my daughter's 8 and they don't let them go to the range here until they're 8. Mm-hmm. And she recently turned 8 and now she's hounding me. When do I get to shoot my 22? Because I bought her the rifle already.
Nice.
And she's hounding me. And I think the sooner that you start to impart that on people, the better for society as a whole, you know?
Yeah.
And the reason that I want my kids to never have any mystery around firearms is because, I got a safe and I try and take the steps to make sure that they don't end up in their hands. But, kids are kids.
Yeah.
They're going to
kids will find a way to
get their hands in something. And my safe does have a spare master key in the event that you know what I mean? Like, I'm just saying there is the potential for someone to be able to get a hold of a firearm that I own at some point. Mm-hmm. So what do I do with that? And I think familiarization and taking the mystery out of the equation. My kids don't give a fuck about my firearms.
Yeah.
Like, if I come in from a long day and I put my Glock up on my bookshelf while I have dinner until I go upstairs and secure it, like, they don't even look at it. That's just a normal, that's Dad's Glock. He pulled it out of his waistband and now it's on the bookshelf.
Yeah.
And there has to be a level of normalcy for that. Because there are
that
people,
totally does not seem to exist, at least in 2020 or in the past
I don't think so.
decade, or maybe in this century in the United States. And it really drives me insane that you could generate such a negative opinion, and that public opinion could potentially be so low over an issue that you don't understand.
Yeah,
whatever that is, that just still blows my mind.
And it's funny. I mean, let's see. This SD card has 7 hours left on it, so we could really go off on a tangent. But no, like, it's interesting times right now because there's so much turmoil in our country, right? And on one hand, people are saying, "Fuck the police. I'm done with the police. I hope we abolish the police."
Mm-hmm.
And then a lot of people on that side of the fence are also part of anti-gun movements.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, if you want to get rid of the police, well, and you're not physically, mentally, and emotionally ready for violence, you have your head up your own ass.
Yeah.
Because as soon as lawlessness overtakes our cities, all it's going to be is people fucking taking advantage of people and robbing people and killing people. The whatever percentage of people that are just fucking sociopaths, they will be fucking having a heyday in no time.
Oh shit. Well, at some point they're going to be able to maybe directly verify this, but I bet who's looking at Seattle closer than anybody else in the world right now? Probably Al-Qaeda.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, dude.
Like, oh, this is great. They're fucking doing it to themselves.
Yeah. And police aren't even responding to those places now.
Yeah.
To Chaz or Chop or whatever it's called.
Yeah.
But, yeah. So what does that leave you? That leaves you with the ability to defend yourself.
Mm-hmm.
And again, like, those people aren't ready for that.
Yeah.
Most of those people probably don't even own firearms.
Dave Ross on, I think Cairo AM radio, he did an appearance on, I think, Tucker Carlson or Sean Hannity a couple years ago. And he had a kind of a provocative question, and it makes a lot more sense now. He was saying, with regard to the Second Amendment, and I think he was just asking it to ask it. I don't want to, put words in his mouth, but when is the time for the population to rise up and say, we've had enough? And there was a little back and forth there. I remember, I couldn't remember what exactly his point of view on asking that question was, but it's a pretty relevant question right now.
You know, maybe my podcast will get pulled for saying this, but that time is fucking now. And if it's not now, it's rapidly approaching.
Yeah.
And this is what I think about it. I think as soon as politicians are self-serving, it's now time to throw them out.
Yeah.
That's it. If you're using the position that you were voted in by the people for self-serving reasons, for your own agendas, for your own financial gain, to help your lobbyist, like if your interest isn't 100% to build this country and support the people that voted you in, then you need to be fucking thrown out.
Yeah.
And I mean, look at where politics has come. It's a career field for people to get filthy fucking rich and just continuously push their own power and build their own wealth. It's disgusting.
And the thing is, it's such a no-brainer that is the case, and it has been the case for a very, very long time.
And I'm not some right-wing wacko conspiracy theorist. Why do you think they want to get rid of the weapons?
So they can be in power.
So
they
we
can have their way.
So we have no say in it anymore.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And you got fucking people like Joe Biden saying a 12-gauge shotgun is perfectly suitable for hunting. Yeah, you're right. I've fucking hunted with 12-gauge shotguns since I was 9 years old.
Yeah. Hunting birds.
That has nothing to do with the Second Amendment. Nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing at all. And if you think that it does, or you try and attach hunting to the Second Amendment, you're missing the whole point.
Yeah.
The whole point is the people need to maintain the power because the government is supposed to work for us, not the other way around. Yeah. And I know that I'm out in left field sometimes, but I think civilian population should have all the same weaponry that the military has.
I 100% agree with that.
And police departments.
Yeah.
You want to have a fucking AT-4? Have an AT-4. That's an anti-tank rocket.
Yeah.
You want to have a fucking fully automatic belt-fed machine gun? Go ahead. Like, I don't feel like the government should be able to dictate what we have while they have all the fucking shit.
Yeah.
What is that?
Watch that go into effect and watch childhood literacy go up. Yeah. Watch families stay together.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's a safer neighborhood.
Exactly, man. So a couple things I want to talk about that I think are important, and maybe we'll wrap this up in 20 minutes or something.
Cool.
I always recommend people go get professional training.
Okay.
When you're new to firearms, and professional training can be a class that you pay for, or it can be your uncle that was in the SEAL teams for 6 years, but find someone that knows what they're doing and then spend some time with that person. It would be like you and one of your buddies trying to teach yourselves jiu-jitsu when you don't know anything.
Yeah.
Now, I saw this on YouTube, so let's try this. And yeah, you can kind of get somewhere with that, but nowhere near where you could get if you sat down with a dude that's been doing it for 20 years.
Yeah.
And so find that person. And like for you, I'd go to the range with you. I would enjoy that. But for people listening, find that person and vet that person, because there's a lot of goons out there that are running tactical shooting classes. And what I would say is make sure that they have a legitimate law enforcement or military background.
I feel like you could put the word tactical in front of a lot of shit and make some money.
It's fucking bananas, dude. You see some of the craziest shit out there, and guys are just, it's just a lot of sizzle, you know, that's what they're selling. They're selling like, oh, look at this. Like the reality of firearms fundamentals, dude, it's a long and boring process.
Mm-hmm.
And like one of my good friends, he's down in Louisiana. His name's Greg Lappin. Shocking jiu-jitsu guy, but also firearms instructor. And he runs classes where there'll be a day or two class. You don't even shoot around. Everything's done with blue guns. And what blue guns are is they're literally just a big hunk of plastic shaped like a Glock, you know? And they run all the firearm fundamentals and the movement drills and the how to present the firearm and your stance and your sight picture, all with fake guns. And that helps you start to establish an understanding of all these fundamentals without the risk of anything ever going wrong. Cause you're not even holding a firearm,
Yeah.
you know? And the only way you're going to be able to get exposed to that is by having someone that knows what they're doing run you through those drills. And again, like you said, it's a financial concern. Like maybe you just have to find someone, you know, or dude, in the world of the fucking internet now, if you just put that out there, hey, like who in my friends group is proficient with pistol?
There could be somebody down the street from my house.
Exactly.
That's a fucking ninja.
And maybe you connect with that person and like I said, then vet them, not just because he said on Facebook that he's ready to take you to the range.
Mm-hmm.
Do your homework, but find someone better than you. Find a coach, find a mentor. Like we talk about that all the time. Finding a mentor in every aspect of life is beneficial.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing with firearms. Did you have any other questions that
a couple, do you prioritize, if I was just going to go shoot in a range or shooting outdoors, kind of whatever I would like, or there's obviously an application for both.
Are you saying like, what do I prefer?
What do you prefer? And then do you see a benefit to one over the other?
No, I don't see a benefit to one over the other necessarily. Obviously living in Western Washington, indoor ranges are nice.
Yeah.
There's two things that suck about outdoor shooting. One is inclement weather, and it just depends. I've shot in fucking every weather condition known to man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't feel like shooting in a hailstorm anymore. I'm 40 years old now. I'm over that shit.
Yeah.
Right. But the other side of it is not only the inclement weather concern, but it's finding a good location.
Mm-hmm.
And it's harder. It's more difficult than you might think, because like one of our black belts here, he owns a 300-acre ranch, Mark,
Yeah.
you know, and I'll go out and shoot 9mm at his ranch, but he's also running a horse ranch, and he has customers and clients, and they're running lessons and stuff. And so I have to coordinate, and then I feel like I'm imposing sometimes. His wife came out and was like, hey, can you guys not shoot? We're trying to run a class. And it's like, fuck, dude.
Yeah.
I never want to be imposing on people. And so, and also depending on what you want to shoot, like with my 308, I want to get 500, 600 meter shots. That's a hard thing to find.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you can go out in the mountains and find places, but the bad thing about that is all the good places out there are understood.
Yeah.
And I've went out there before, and you got a truck full of fucking 22-year-olds drinking alcohol, pounding beers, and shooting their guns. It's like, I'm fucking out of here, dude.
Yeah.
And that's a pet peeve of mine. If you're fucking shooting your gun, you're not drinking alcohol.
Oh, yeah. No.
That's it. That's not up for discussion. We're not going to go shoot skeet and pound beers. Like, and guys, I fucking love pounding beers. Like, there's a time for everything, and it's not the time when a firearm is in your hand. And so I'll see that stuff, and it's like, I can't fucking be out here.
Yeah,
like,
no
I can't be around people shooting firearms that I don't know their level of expertise, you know? And even at the range, that's true. Go to the range, and I want you to fucking look in the ceiling. And you're going to see the ceiling literally starting 2 feet from the counter all the way down to the sand at the end of the range, bullet holes everywhere.
No shit.
And you look up and you're like, someone shot their gun directly above their head. How did that fucking happen? And the answer is, I don't fucking know how that happens, but it happens all the time.
Yeah.
And in the Ranger Regiment, that's called an ND. If you pick your weapon up and it goes off and you shoot into the ceiling, you're kicked out of the Ranger Regiment.
I believe it. Yeah.
That is an unexcusable mistake.
Yeah.
But people that aren't held to a standard just go to the range, not knowing what the fuck they're doing. They pick their gun up and they put their finger in the trigger well and it's already loaded. Just everything's happening incorrectly. Boom. You know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, public ranges and going out into the woods, I'm always weary around being around other people.
Sure.
I mean, ideally, I get a fucking big piece of property in Idaho and we build our own range.
Yeah.
That's long-term goal,
Yep.
you know? Does that, I mean, I kind of went on a tangent there. Did that answer,
that's all good.
Your
And,
question?
yeah. And that's, I mean, safety is obviously a really big thing for me, you know, doing this and teaching, and then in construction, safety's first and foremost. I've, knock on wood, but I've had a good run of not being injured badly.
Yeah.
And it's the same kind of thing. If we're rolling and, one of us got hurt, we'd feel bad, but there's an implicit understanding that this is part of the deal. Like,
of course.
A gun going off is fucking unacceptable to me. That makes me nervous just thinking about it. So
I like that you brought that up, because I wanted to go over safety last.
Okay.
Because there's 4 fundamental firearm safety rules that if you own a gun and you don't know these rules, you shouldn't own a gun. Now, I'm not saying we should have to do government mandated classes like Washington fucking state is now implementing, because I don't think the government should have the authority to tell you what you have to do or what you don't have to do to own a gun. I'm saying as a human being and a responsible citizen, if you own a gun, learn about it and learn about these firearm fundamental rules. Because if you implement these 4 simple rules, you're not going to hurt anybody accidentally. It can't happen. If you hurt somebody, you violated one of these principles, and now that's on you, right? So the first one is treat every weapon as if it were loaded. Every single weapon at every single moment has a bullet in the chamber. Just get that in your mind right now. From now on, when you pick up a gun, it's loaded. Now, obviously, we all understand that there's plenty of times that weapons aren't loaded. Okay. I'm not literally saying, fucking hypnotize yourself to where you think the gun is loaded all the time. I'm saying treat it as if it were loaded. Meaning, I'm going to fucking point, like, anywhere I point this weapon, anywhere I set it down, like, if someone that picks it up that doesn't understand the weapon, like, you want to have an understanding in your own mind that that weapon is loaded and that behavior is unacceptable.
Yeah. There's destruction at the other end of this.
Exactly. So if your friend comes over that's not a firearm guy and says, "Hey, is this loaded?" and you say, "No, it's unloaded," and he picks it up and points it at you, that's absolutely unacceptable. You can't allow that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And luckily for me in the Ranger Regiment, if you violate some of these rules, you're fucked, dude. You're low crawling in the mud for a half hour.
Yeah.
And it's called flagging, and we'll get to that one next. But if you flag someone, it's a fucking problem, and it is beat into you. So treat every weapon as if it were loaded. The next one is don't point the weapon at anything you don't want to destroy. Like, no matter when, no matter what, like, and this is exactly what I was just talking about, flagging someone. Like, if I'm holding my pistol here and I'm not at the range and it's not loaded and I'm talking to you about my new Glock and I turn and I'm like, "Yeah, look right here," and the weapon's pointed at you. I get anxiety if I'm holding my Glock and my dog starts to walk by, like, and I'll move it. I don't allow the muzzle of my weapon to flag any human or any animal that I don't want to shoot, just because it's so ingrained into me.
Gotcha.
That's it.
Just absolutely never at any time.
It's not up for discussion.
Okay.
You do not flag people. And a good way to think about flagging people is think about a weapon that had a laser mounted on it, right? Okay. Turn that laser on. And now anywhere you move, if that laser hits something that you're not comfortable with being destroyed, you're wrong.
Okay.
Right?
Gotcha.
The next one is keep your finger off the trigger until you're ready to shoot. And I know that sounds kind of silly if you're not a firearm guy. Like, keep your finger off the trigger. Like, you watch someone pick up a gun that's not a weapons person, the first thing they fucking do is they grab the gun and they put their finger in the trigger well, meaning the trigger guard around and it's right there. And their hands on the finger is on the trigger. And that should just give you instant anxiety. Like, set that fucking weapon down. I've literally taken guns out of people's hands. Like, and that's a time when, like, being aggressive and being a dick is okay.
Yeah.
Like, put that fucking weapon back down on the table right now. Hold on. Like, okay, I know you're my homie, like, but we got to fucking talk about a couple things.
Gotcha.
Right? And it's not up. And it's like any other aspect of life. Like, You're not worried about hurting their feelings. I don't fucking care if like you look like a dick. Something is wrong and it needs to be addressed right now.
Just is what it is.
And in the world of firearms, they say everybody is a safety officer. And what that saying means is it doesn't matter if you're the lowest private or you're a general. If you see something fucked up, hey, set that weapon down. Cease fire. Everybody stop shooting. I don't like this.
Gotcha.
And the lowest private in the platoon can call a ceasefire and say what he didn't like. And we implore people to do that, because what that does is it keeps everybody accountable to each other, and it keeps everybody's head on a swivel. Their eyes are open. They're watching what's going on. Right. And so the same things for your kids and your family and your wife. Like if they see anything that fucking like seems, oh, you know what? Like that doesn't look like a good idea. Fucking stop everything right now. Because guess what? If they're doing something that's bad, well, then we stopped it, right? And potentially prevented an incident. Or if maybe you're overreacting a little bit and it like, hey, bro, check it out. This is why this happened or whatever, right?
Sure.
But it solves the situation. And so never hesitate to fucking call ceasefire, tell everybody to set their weapons down. And again, the trigger finger thing, it's if your finger doesn't touch the trigger,
gun can't go off.
Yeah. It's that simple. And I know that sound like you see people say like, oh, guns aren't the problem. People are the problem. You don't see guns walking down the street killing people, you know, but a lot of gun deaths are accidental and they're caused by people being fucking morons. And so if you, those, you know, like treat every weapon if it was loaded, don't point weapons at things you don't want to destroy. Keep your finger off the trigger. And then the last one is know the condition of your weapon at all times. Gotcha. Meaning not, okay, yes, the magazine is loaded and the magazine is inserted. Okay. Those two things, I know that's the case, but is there a round in the chamber? Because that's a game changer.
Mm-hmm.
On your concealed carry, you should have a round in the chamber. Because if you don't, you're losing a lot of time when you decide to engage. But there's also, I mean, again, you have to figure out what works for you. There's some people that don't keep a round in the chamber because they say, well, I got little kids and I just feel like one extra step to prevent an accidental incident in my house. And I can see that side of it too, you know, or maybe when your firearms are in your house, you don't keep a round in the chamber, but then when you go out, you
rack it on the way out or something like
chamber
that.
Around and you do what's called a press check. You pull the slide back a little bit.
Okay.
And you can see the condition of your weapon. I actually think the Springfield XD has an indicator that shows if a round is chambered or not.
Yeah, it does.
So my Glocks don't have that. So you just press check. But I'll press check every time I pick my weapon up just to reiterate the condition of it. And not that I don't already know, but let's reiterate the condition. And that's what a lot of firearms fundamentals are. It's just going back to the basics and going through those motions over and over and over and over. So knowing the condition of your weapon at all times, that's something that should, if you watch me clear my Glock, right? Dude, check out this new Glock I bought. I drop the magazine, I rack it, you see the round fly out.
Mm-hmm.
You know the condition of my weapon, right? But when I hand it to you to look at it, let's double check the condition of that weapon. And you double check, you see there's no magazine in there, and then you clear it and you pull the slide back and you look and feel. Okay, you put your finger in there and say, yep, I don't feel around. And then you look in there. I almost said look, listen, feel. You don't have to listen for a bullet. But you look in there and now you satisfy that for yourself.
Gotcha.
Because if there were to be some type of incident after I handed you that weapon, that's not on me, that's on you.
Yeah.
Because you're in control of that weapon now. So you clear that, and then you after you clear it, you're comfortable with the condition, right? And then the other one is, and I actually fucked it up. I said know the condition of your weapon.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little caveat at the end. The actual fourth rule is know your target and what lies in the background and the foreground.
Okay.
Okay. So that's number 4. I mixed those last two up, but regardless, it's just a simple understanding of your battle space.
Gotcha.
And if I'm going to pull this weapon so the first 3 rules really establish, don't have a dumbass mistake.
Yeah.
Don't squeeze off a round in your pocket because you put your finger on the trigger. Don't fucking point your weapon at your friend when you're at your house. Like, dumbass mistakes cost a lot of people their lives. And that's why it's important to really reiterate those. But the 4th rule, know your target, what lies beyond it, and what lies in the foreground. That's understanding your battle space. Because if you're going to shoot in any type of public setting, it's a 360-degree range.
Yeah.
Okay? With collateral damage probably in almost every single direction you point that weapon. And so, is it worth shooting a guy who's screaming and running around with a knife if you're shooting into a crowd of people? Well, the answer is no.
Yeah.
Because maybe he'll cut someone, but there's probably 100% chance your bullet's going to fucking hit somebody other than him.
Yeah.
Right. And so, knowing your foreground and your background not only allows you to understand your battle space and what your target's doing and where you may have to take cover. It doesn't just do all that, but it really, how do I word this? It allows you, if you know your battle space, it really allows you to not put yourself in a position where you may be hurting innocent people. It's as simple as that.
Gotcha. Someone that otherwise would have no affiliation with the city totally does not deserve what might be coming their way.
Yeah, because if you if you seize an opportunity to try and take out a bad guy and you hurt or kill somebody else in the process, everything you fucking trained for, everything that you stand for, everything that you did, the fact that you were even carrying a firearm, it was all for nothing.
Yeah.
It was all, you know what I mean? Like, and that's why having these conversations is important. I saw a video of a lady somewhere down in the South, and she was holding a guy at gunpoint with a Glock from like 60 meters in a field. And then there was a bunch of people behind him. And she had like some Southern accent. She's all, "Don't you fucking move. Don't you fucking move. I got my gun drawn on you. Don't you fucking move." And I was just thinking, I couldn't take that shot on my best day. Man. A 50-meter shot with a Glock.
Yeah.
With other people around. Like, what are you doing? And that all comes down to lack of training. And she didn't understand her capabilities. And she obviously didn't understand the weapons capabilities. Because the CAG guys might be able to make a 50-meter shot. Shy of that, good fucking luck, dude.
Someone really fucking good that trains all the time.
Yes, exactly. You know?
Maybe.
I feel like there's one more thing I wanted to touch on, but I'm drawing a blank. Did you have any other questions before we wrap this up?
I don't think so, man. I think that's there's a lot of good stuff in there for me to think about. Obviously, whenever it comes in, I'll hit you up if you're free. If you want to go shoot, help me break that thing in. That'd be cool. What do you think from your position, listening to me? Where do you think I'm at? You think I'm off to a good start, or do you think I'm missing anything? Or
no, I think we hashed out everything that you need to know to get started. And the biggest thing that's going to make you a winner at this is just having that beginner's mindset and being eager to learn. Because if you don't have that, you probably shouldn't be carrying a firearm.
Yeah.
And again, like, everybody has their constitutional right to carry one. And I'm not here to say what the requirements should or should not be, but do yourself a favor and embrace that beginner's mindset like Scott's doing, and ask questions, seek guidance, and put yourself through the training. So now you don't just have a paperweight in your pocket. You have something that you can protect society with. And, you know, I'll leave I'll wrap it up with this and I'll let you say anything else that you want to say, but I've seen so many people and even my own family members that, like my mother, and I don't want to talk shit about my own mom on my podcast. That's bad for your karma.
Probably
right?
don't do that. Yeah.
But she carries a .38 revolver in her purse that she's never went to the range with.
No shit.
And she's pushing 70 and she's not physically fit. And I'm like, Mom, I would fucking take that gun out of your hand in 1 second. That's what I would do.
Mm-hmm.
If I was a bad guy, I would walk up and I would snatch that from you.
Yeah.
And there's nothing you could do about it. But she thinks that she is ready to shoot someone in a combat engagement. And it's like, dude, that was like what my whole adult life was dedicated to. Nothing could be further from the truth, you know?
Yeah, man.
You know? And so if you're listening to this and you carry a gun and you think you're ready to shoot somebody in the streets, if they cross you wrong or they present a threat to you, I would really implore you to take a step back and kind of detach yourself and detach the emotions of that and really do a good self-assessment on what you bring to the table and what your capabilities are and where your headspace is at and what you think you're mentally prepared to do. And if you don't come to good conclusions with that discussion with yourself, it's time to hit the range. And it's time to start training.
Roger that.
You good, man?
Yeah, I think so. I appreciate you making the time, man. It's been a really cool conversation.
All right, guys. I think this will be a good conversation right now because like we mentioned, 2 million people are new gun owners. And I would hate to see all of those people out there potentially put themselves or their loved ones in some type of inherent risk that's really unnecessary just because they don't understand that world and they're new to that world. So I think this will be a good podcast to have a lot of dialogue and back and forth. So feel free to hit me up, ask questions, and I'm sure we'll be talking more about this in the future. So thanks for listening, guys.